welcome to the channel. My name is Mel and I'm a crafter and homesteader living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. If you are new here, then welcome, and if you are a returning viewer, then welcome back. This is my annual holiday and winter knitting plans video. I have quite a few things I would like to do over the next few months. I will be starting with my kind of festive knits for the holiday period and then move into what I plan for over the winter months in the new year and through sort of January, February time. I'm currently wearing last year's Christmas knit, and it is the Boreal sweater by Kate Davies turned into a cardigan, and I did a whole two-part video series on how kind of my vlog on making this. And I will be paying attention to it myself because I intend to knit this again. I did steek this and I'm finding that the fit is a little bit strange because of the way that I wanted the, if I stand up a little bit, this snowflake meets in the middle, and I've steeked down the centre of a large snowflake, but I also had to adjust to make sure that the snowflakes run down the arms, so the stitch count at the back is a little bit narrower than the stitch count at the front, so it tends to want to pull backwards on my body a little bit. But since it's just a Christmas sweater which doesn't get used all year round, it doesn't worry me too much, although I definitely will be adjusting that when I come to re-knit this again. So let's just kick straight off, and I will put photos on the screen of the designs as we go along, and I will show you the yarns that I intend to use. So like I said, I knit this last year, and I knit this with, I think it was Drops Alaska in the red, and the white I think was Surdor Chunky Tweed or something like that, and it is a little thicker than the Drops Alaska, and therefore the top is a little bulkier, and the red fuzz is kind of rubbing off on the white a little bit. The colour's not bleeding, but if I got a lint roller on it I think it would crisp it up a little bit. It is quite warm, and it is a cardigan and not a sweater. That being said, I do intend to make a sweater version of this sweater this year. I know, even though I don't wear big sweaters that often, but I did see somebody make a gorgeous sweater version of this, and I wanted to do something in similar colours. So what I intend to use Drops Nepal, as I will pop the picture of the design of the sweater on the screen. It is by Kate Davies, if I haven't already said. I intend to use Drops Nepal for both colours. So I saw somebody's design where they'd reversed the colours, so the darkest colour was on the top and the lightest was on the bottom, and they had done a navy blue and white, and therefore to me it looks kind of like the night sky with snowflakes in it and snow on the ground at the bottom. So that's what I intend to do. I intend to make a kind of festive, although it's not just Christmassy the same way that the red and white one is very, to me, screams Christmas. This kind of screams winter rather than Christmas. And in fact, if I lived somewhere snowy, I would wear this however long it was snowing for. So Drops Nepal, the blue is in colourway 1709 and the white is 1101. And the Nepal is I think it's an alpaca blend. Yep, 75% wool, 35% alpaca blend, and hopefully it'll work up relatively quickly because it is an Aran weight yarn, and therefore the colour work should go at a reasonable pace. I know it didn't seem to take too long when I was knitting the cardigan. If you can hear any background noises, I apologise. My husband is working out, well, he's working on the construction of the sun lounge, and he's doing some tool, like construction-y work outside using saws and hammers and such like. So that is my first knitting plan, for mostly for the December period, so I'm going with that part first. So I guess that kind of leads us into specifically Christmassy knits, and that will be my Christmas socks for this year. I hope to knit many. I am already knitting a pair of Christmas socks. I'm not sure if I have them to hand. I haven't, but I will have shown them in a previous video anyway. I plan on making a pair of Christmas socks for my husband this year, and I'm going to use Stylecraft Head Over Heels in the colourway Vixen, and it is this self-striping yarn. It's trying to focus on me. There we go. Self-striping yarn in the shadows, my husband walking past the window, and you can see how it stripes up. It's just basically stripy yarn, and I plan to use a burgundy red contrast for the toes and heels and cuff, and I will just be knitting these vanilla socks, my usual vanilla sock recipe, which is toe up, Turkish cast on, gusset, slip stitches on the ball of the heel. I haven't decided on whether I'm going to do them on the heel flap or not, because my husband is more likely to wear these in boots or shoes than I would wear socks, because I stay at home a lot, so my socks don't wear out on the heels particularly. And then just stocking it everywhere, and a 2x2 rib is most likely. So first pair of Christmas socks are for John, my husband, and then I have many other Christmas socks to choose from, and I intend to knit as many as possible. I really want some of the new colourway from West Yorkshire Spinners, which is a sparkle yarn in the colourway Yuletide, which is 120, is that a 6 or an 8? An 8, 1208. It is a sparkle sock yarn. It is kind of a striping variegated yarn. It has stripes of green, and then it has kind of speckly stripes in between of either red and white or gold and white. And the sparkle in it, I'm not sure if it will show up on camera, but it is a gold stellina sparkle yarn rather than a silver one, so it's very, very festive and it reminds me of Christmas trees. As for toes and heels and cuffs, I'm not sure yet. I'm probably going to go with the Regia Ecoline Uni in the colourway 3004, which is a dark green, which I think will look really nice with this and make it even more Christmas tree-ish, in my opinion. But we shall see. I mean, I could go with gold, or I could go with something else entirely. Other Christmas socks. I also have the leftover half of another West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. It is the Christmas colourway from a couple of years ago, and it is the colourway Candy Cane. Is it Candy Cane or Candy Lane? Candy Cane. Last time I did a pair of Anastasia socks, which has like a helical lacework design up it, and I think this time I'm just going to go with vanilla socks. And I also did red toes and heels for those, and I can't decide if I'm going to do white undyed toes and heels for this one. I'm tempted in some ways rather than do red again, or the only limeish green that I've got is a different green to this, and it's more of a, oh, it's an apple green. It's Drops Fable in the colourway Apple, whereas this green is more of a kind of a Grinch green. So I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do green or if I'm going to do white, but I would like to use the other half of this ball of yarn. And other options include another West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas yarn in the colourway 0388, I think, but it could be 06, but it could also be 886. It's one of their other yarns, and I think it was the first kind of Christmas yarn that they brought out, and it is also another red, white and green design, and this one is more variegated. I have a full ball of this. This is the second ball of this I've had, and I've had it a little while now. The previous one I did knit a pair of socks each for me and my husband with green toes and heels, so I guess I would probably do red ones for the second ball of yarn instead. But I do have other Christmas yarns as well. I have like an irresistible urge to buy Christmas sock yarns and Halloween sock yarns. Basically anything that's kind of seasonal themed I have no restraint on. So I think that's all the specifically Christmas plans that I have. After that, it's mostly for once we get into the new year, or beforehand also, but once we get into the new year and we have like January, February, before we start to think about kind of spring, summer knits. So I have a few plans for those too. I have 2 garments that I can think of. I will check my list once I've gone through the ones I can remember, but there's definitely 2 garments and a shawl and a pair of wristies that I have the yarn for beside me. So first up we have actually a sweater that I started a while ago and I wasn't enjoying knitting it, and I haven't decided whether I'm just going to change my needle size or carry on knitting where I left off. So I started knitting the Ori sweater by Audrey Borrego, and I'm knitting it in a boucle yarn. It is a drops yarn. It is drops alpaca boucle mix, which is an 80% alpaca, 15% wool, 5% polyamide, and it is the colourway 2020 2020. That says it all as to why I hated knitting on this. It is a boucle yarn, and it's just so awful to knit with. It's splitty, or it's not so much it's splitty, but it's easy to get your needle stuck between the different threads in the yarn, which I'm not going to be able to show on camera. But a boucle yarn is made up of, it's not going to focus, but it's a kind of multiple threads that are kind of bound together, but they're not bound together, the plies not bound together all the way down the length. So you get these little loops, and it's just a bloody pain in the bum, to put it mildly. So when I swatched for this, I found that the bigger your needle, the easier it is to knit with. But on the bigger needle size, I didn't like the texture of the fabric, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I might rip it out and go up a needle size and change the size that I knit, or I might just get on with it and knit it as I intended, because I do want this sweater. I think it'll be a lovely cozy sweater when it's finished. It'll be lovely and cozy and squishy, and yeah, it is a v-neck drop shoulder sweater, and I think I'll really love it once it's made. It's going to be one of those projects where you just got to focus on the finished item at the end and just force yourself through the process. So that is the Ori sweater. I also have, what else have we got? We have a pair of wrist warmers that I've had in my queue for quite a number of years. A couple of years ago I knit the Catching Butterflies wristies by Tiny Owl Knits, and I knit those for my mum, and I intend to knit the Catching Snowflakes wristies, which is a very similar design by the same designer, Tiny Owl Knits, but it has snowflakes, white mohair snowflakes on the palms and on the backs of the mittens, in the same yarn but in a different colour. That was a lot of things to try and get out. So when I knit my mum's Catching Butterflies, they were knit in a lavender purple yarn because she likes purple, and this time I'm using a icy blue for the snowflakes. This is in some Debbie Bliss Baby Cash Merino that I've had in my stash for years, and I bought this in the sale in a local shop for, I think it's £2.50 or £2, because I can't read the handwriting very well, a ball, because it has been scribbled out and written on. The colourway is very long. It is 340204, and it is, like I said, this nice icy blue, and I intend to knit these. It is a pair of textured wristies, and they're quite short little wristies. Mum's didn't take very long to knit up at all, so I want to get these made for myself, because I obviously don't have enough pairs of wristies. I have many wristies, but I would really like these ones too. I also have a shawl I would like to knit up. It is the Silverleaf shawl. The name of the designer eludes me in one moment. The designer is Lisa Haynes. The Silverleaf shawl, and again has been in my queue for quite some time. The yarn I'm going to use is this yarn. I have less than a full skein there and a full skein ready, caked up to go. This yarn, unfortunately the dyer is no longer dyeing yarn. It is Old Maiden Ant yarns, and I have a few more skeins of her yarn because her colourways were absolutely fabulous. It is a 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% stellina in the colourway Dreek, and it is a one that is not going to show on camera. It is a kind of a silvery light grey, and it is lovely and sparkly, and it's looking quite mono coloured, like solid colour, but it is very alpaca, tickling my nose. It is a semi-solid colour with tiny little bits of darker grey and lighter patches, and I love this colour. It is a gorgeous, nice, neutral, cool grey, which I think will go with many of my things, and it was always intended to use for this project. I did use a small amount for my winter wander shawl that I made a few years ago by I don't remember, I'll put the name on the screen, and I'm hoping I have enough left. I should, in theory, have enough left. It's an asymmetrical shawl, so hopefully I can get enough length out of it with all this yarn. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do. Next up is another garment which I have mentioned a couple of times on my winter knitting plans videos and never seem to get around to it, which is why I'm trying to keep my knitting list for the next few months relatively short. Socks don't take me very long at all, but my actual main projects, I'm keeping the list relatively long. One shawl, a couple of garments, that sort of thing. This is another sweater. It is the Ibra sweater by Ellie of Skein Day Knits, and I intend to knit this in Drops Flora, which I have used for a cardigan before, and it is one of my favourite wear around the house cardigans. It is very cozy, it is lightweight and warm because it's a fingering weight, and it is an alpaca based yarn. The content is 65% wool, 35% alpaca, the same as the Drops Nepal, and the colours I intend to use is number 03 for the main colour and colour 04 for the contrast, well, for the colourwork colour. I did and ah on changing this out for a blue grey, but I think keeping it in the neutral greys will look really rather good, which is pretty close to what the original design was. I have yet to decide if I'm keeping this as a sweater or whether I'm going to stick it as a cardigan. I think I need to look at the clothes in my wardrobe and decide whether I would wear it more with like sweatpants or jeans, or whether I'd wear it more with dresses. At the moment I don't have many dresses in my wardrobe that I would wear a light grey cardigan with, so I will have to look in my fabric stash with the fabrics that I have lined up for making dresses with and have a look and weigh up which is going to get most usage basically. So that is the only other garment that I have on my list for the next few months. What else do we have? No, I tell a lie. I tell a lie. I've forgotten. I changed my mind about the usage of a yarn and decided to throw in another garment. I don't know whether I'm going to get this done this winter, but if not, it's nothing stopping me knitting it at some point in the year. So I have a lot of drop stash. A few years ago I bought a lot of drops yarn. I had no stash at the time. I had 1 or 2 skeins of yarn and the rest was bits and bobs I picked up from the charity shop. It was when I first got into knitting really profusely, and I stocked up during the drop sales basically, and I had a lot of yarn, and they were all allocated for different projects. This yarn was allocated for a colourwork yoked sweater by Kate Davies that I've decided I'm not sure if I want to knit it or not. Or maybe I will, but I'm not in any hurry for. Instead, I'm going to use this Drops Lima, which is it's the same base as the Flora and the Nepal actually. It's 65% wool, 35% alpaca. I obviously like this yarn a lot. It is softer than the plain wool on its own. I intend to use this for one moment. It is the Storm sweater by Petite Knit. It is a drop shoulder, all of a textured sweater. and I just fancy some more textured neutrals in my wardrobe, and this one seemed to, I think it will work quite well, and I will keep this as a sweater rather than a cardigan, and I think it'll be a nice one to wear at home. I wear a lot of either dresses at home or sweatpants. There is no uncomfortable clothing worn in this house unless it's some special occasion, so I think it will look really nice just over sweatpants and casual around the house. So I intend to knit the storm sweater with this grey. It's an unusual shade of grey. It's almost a dove grey, but not quite. The colour's coming out not too bad, slightly cooler toned actually on screen. It's more of a, I hesitate to say even a neutral grey, because it really isn't. It is a neutral grey, but it's like more closer to a dove grey. And I decided I was just going to use it for this rather than the colourwork sweater, because I hadn't quite decided on the colours I wanted for the original sweater. Originally it was going to be like shades of purples and blues and such like, and I've kind of decided I'm not sure I want those colours now. I think that sweater would look better in more autumnal tones. So that is the only other garment that I have on my list. I have just two more items that I would like to knit over this winter, and they're both pairs of socks. The first one is the Winterberry socks by This Handmade Life. Again, this is one that's been on my queue for quite some time. I'm not sure if I want to maybe use the Regia Eco line that I'm using for the contrast toes and heels for John's Christmas socks. I think it would work quite well. I'm not sure how well the pattern will show up. I think it'll be fine, although it's a darker yarn, because it's a single colour, I think it'll be fine. And the pattern has lots of bubbles and stuff in it, so it would kind of show up a bit better. I don't know if I have any other kind of red toned yarns that I could use, that I have enough of. I might have some of the Drops Fable in the dark rose colour, but I'm not sure if I have enough of that. And I'm trying not to buy too much stash. I have bought more yarns this year, but I am still trying, like the last couple of years, is trying to get through my stash and the yarns that I've already bought and have projects allocated for. I find it a little frustrating when I look at my stash wall and I have all these yarns. That would be the circular saw. I have all these yarns that are already allocated for projects, and it's just getting around to making those projects. So I'm trying not to buy too much stash yarn. Yarns that I have bought have been for a couple of crocheted blankets and also for socks, because I knit so many socks. I have bought more sock yarns through this year as well. So I'm hoping I can just use stash yarn for this. I should be able to. If nothing else, I can use this yarn for the Twinkleberry socks. Oh, I have that rosa here. I think I only have less than one ball of the dark rose. So I think it might have to be the Regia for that. The only other project I want to knit is another pair of colourwork socks. I did knit a pair of Halloween colourwork socks this year, and it has encouraged me to try making some Christmas ones. So I'm looking down at my phone trying to remember the name of these socks. So it is the Cup of Hot Cocoa socks by Stone Knits, and I really like these. They have little mugs of hot chocolate on the top, and I intend to dye some yarn very similar in colour to the original design for this, kind of like a chocolatey brown basically, because I have no browns in my stash that have kind of that chocolate brown. I have like I have rusty browns and stuff like that, but I have much yarn in sock bases left over from my yarn dyeing days, so I will just use some of my dyes and some of my yarns, and I will dye up some nice chocolate brown yarn to knit these with. The little bits of red and white and green I'm sure I will find in amongst my stash. I don't have to worry about that. The white yarn I've used on this is actually a speckle yarn, and I'm thinking I could use maybe a little bit of my Yuletide Felicitations yarn that I've set aside for a sweater to do those bits, but because they're only small quantities, I'll be fine to just snaffle a few yards here and there. There is another pair of socks by the same designer. I think they're by the same designer. I couldn't swear to it. If not, I will put the name on the screen. There is a pair of socks with Christmas puddings on. Actually, I'm not sure if it is the same designer. And those are another temptation. I don't remember the name of the socks because they're not in my my queue. They're just in my favourites somewhere. But they have little Christmas puddings on, and I will put, like, if I haven't already, there will be a photo on the screen and the name of the designer, and that is another possibility instead of the hot chocolate ones, but I can't decide which yet. Depends which yarns I intend to use as well, because we are getting close to Christmas now, and it's how much time do I really have to knit all the Christmas socks I want to make. So that is my list for this year. It is quite extensive as usual, but I'm hoping the vast majority of the items are actually socks, and the vast majority of those will be knit before Christmas. So that still leaves me a couple of months after Christmas to get through the more wintry ones, which are the bigger items, and there'll be less items but more knitting time involved in them. So I hope you got some inspiration and some ideas from some of those. Mostly it is vanilla socks, but there are some pretty yarns in there, and hopefully some of the other items that I've mentioned might not have come up on your radar, and you might have thought that would be a good choice for somewhere down the line too. So I'm going to leave this video here, and I shall hopefully see you on the next regular podcast episode, and I shall speak to you again soon. Bye bye.